Declare open this public hearing of the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Public Works for the inquiry into the Department of Defence 9 Molonglo Drive Project, Brindabella Park, Australian Capital Territory. The committee's role, as defined in the Public Works Committee Act, is to consider and report on the purpose and need for the proposed works, the most effective use of public money that can be made in carrying out the works, and the present and prospective public value of the proposed works. In accordance with the committee's resolutions of 31st of July 2025, this hearing will be broadcast on the Parliament's website, and the proof and official transcripts of proceedings will be published on the Parliament's website. I also remind members of the media who may be present or listening on the web of the need to fairly and accurately report the proceedings of the committee. I'm Tony Zappia, the chair of the committee. I'll ask my colleagues to introduce themselves.
Yeah, Dave Smith, member for Bean, ACT.
Ashan Behabaha, federal member for Barton.
And Josh, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Senator Josh Daliga for Tasmania.
Thank you. Okay, I now welcome representatives of the Department of Defence to give evidence. For the Hansard record, would you each please state your full name and the capacity in which you appear before the committee? Brigadier?
Brigadier Matthew Quinn, Director General, Capital Facilities and Infrastructure Branch.
Adrian Kovacs, Assistant Secretary, Regional Services, Northern and Central Zone.
Jared McClelland, Project Manager, Contract Administrator, RPS Consulting.
Daniel Butterick, Quantity Surveyor, RPS Consulting.
That's fine. Although the committee does not require you to give evidence under oath, I should advise you that these hearings are formal proceedings of the Parliament. Consequently, they warrant the same respect as the proceedings of the Parliament itself. Giving false or misleading evidence is a serious matter and may be regarded as contempt of Parliament. I now invite you to make a brief opening statement before we proceed to a discussion. Brigadier, I'll hand over to you, and if you'd like to just give us a brief overview of the project, and then we'll have an open discussion.
Thank you, Chair. This project proposes to provide safe, secure and fit-for-purpose office accommodation with approximately 1,475 work points. Within a leased property, the project will provide office accommodation to meet Defence's existing and future workforce needs, and will provide a central hub for departmental services in the area, including ICT, mail and estate support services. The proposed works includes a fit-out to support a flexible, agile, contemporary working environment that meets Defence's capability requirements now and into the future. Office accommodation includes partitioning for individual offices, meeting and conference rooms, utility and storerooms, secure rooms, training rooms, breakout spaces, staff amenities and communication equipment rooms. Workstations allowing for an allocation of 8 desks per 10 staff members. The estimated total capital cost of the project is $103.9 million, including allowance for contingency and risk provision. The project will encourage local industry participation in accordance with Commonwealth procurement requirements, and will provide opportunities for small and medium enterprises, including Indigenous businesses, to deliver work packages. The project will also provide opportunities for upskilling and training to improve individual skills and employability on future projects. Defence has undertaken extensive community consultation throughout the planning and development of the project. Consultation has included engagement with federal, state and local government representatives, local businesses and members of the local community. Most recently, Defence convened a public information forum on the 11th of December. The forum provided an opportunity for local community to engage with the project team, ask questions and raise concerns regarding the project. A summary of these questions and responses has been included in the community consultation report, which is publicly available. Subject to parliamentary approval, the project is forecast to commence construction in mid-2026 and is expected to be completed by late 2027. Chair, that concludes my opening statement. The Defence witnesses are ready to answer the questions from the committee.
Thank you, Brigadier, and thank you also for the earlier off-the-record briefing that was provided to the committee, which gave us a good overview of what is being proposed. And I note that even in your comments just now, you talked about local employment opportunities and Indigenous employment and the like. I appreciate that you've got aspirational targets about how many apprentices and how many of the workforce will be Indigenous people. Based on your experience here in Canberra, what is the likelihood of achieving those targets?
Thank you, Chair. Before I hand over to the project manager, contract administrator to talk about that in more detail, I will say that the targets set are basis of a local industry capability plan that is submitted by the head contractor, and that we will monitor throughout the project at our project governance boards and our project control group meetings. We discuss their achievements to date as each procurements go along. So the fact that it's come from the head contractor, they're the ones promising these targets. We believe they're ultimately achievable. I'll just hand over to Jared McClellan to see if he's got anything to add to those. That's the opening statement.
Yeah, ultimately that's correct. As stated, it's part of the contract with the lessor and the construction contractor. So there's reporting mechanisms under that, which we as the PMCA will of course monitor and manage those throughout delivery. So that's something that obviously we'll work toward throughout delivery. Of course, we can't preclude what the outcomes may be, but it's certainly a focus for us to absolutely, intent is to absolutely hit those targets, yes.
Yep. My other question, Defence currently operates from other locations within that general precinct. Was this proposal a matter whereby Defence went looking for an alternative to the sites where you're currently operating from, or was it a proposal that was put to you by Canberra Airport that they would make available a designated building where you could consolidate? In other words, who initiated the proposal?
So I think it's already public knowledge that Canberra Airport Group approached Defence, but I'll probably hand over to Mr. Kovacs to talk in more detail of how that process worked. But obviously everything we do does go under significant scrutiny to ensure we achieve value for money for the Commonwealth, but I'm sure Adrian will be able to talk to that in a little bit more detail.
Thank you, Matt. That's correct. So we occupy multiple buildings within the Brindabella Park precinct, of which Canberra Airport Proprietary Limited is the lessor. There was a period of time, for a period of time, Defence was looking at upgrade works to a number of buildings. We've got some really old fit-outs at end of life, and they no longer meet our contemporary requirements, particularly around security and work health and safety. And there was some work done previously to look at which of those buildings might require refit works. Canberra Airport Proprietary Limited obviously knew that. There'd been some discussions around that with Defence. And they therefore submitted a proposal to Defence because they were in construction of a new building within the precinct. So we received an unsolicited proposal from Canberra Airport, and then we undertook the relevant assessment processes. We looked at proposals against other offerings within the market to ensure that what was proposed presented value for money. And considered a series of other alternative options. And in consultation with our mandated whole of government property service provider, undertook a cost-benefit analysis that demonstrated value for money, and then obviously followed the Commonwealth Property Management Framework and went through the approval process with the Department of Finance.
Okay, well, can I just... this will be my last question before I hand over to my colleagues. You just made the comment about value for money. If I provide this scenario to you, can you give me an idea of where we would have landed? If we did nothing for the next 10 years but stayed in the buildings where Defence currently occupies, what would the total cost over the next 10 years be compared to what we're spending now for the next 10 years? I'm just trying to get my head around, is it really a savings or is it not?
Chair, I think I'm happy for to talk in generic savings. I think we talk with specific numbers in the in-camera hearing, if that's okay.
And I don't even want numbers. I'm just trying to ask the question, is there actually a savings between now and the end of the next decade by doing this, or is there not?
So before I hand over to the team here for further things, I would sort of highlight some of the opportunities that I'm not sure if we expanded on enough. This Defence has recently increased its security requirements, and so some of these ageing buildings were at lower levels of security. It also the fit out was inflexible, so that we couldn't increase our density. So this provides an opportunity to increase the number of workspaces per square metre of lease space. And so there's a number of advantages for this, as well as our opportunity. This new fit out will also allow us to do to ensure that we can do allocate. I think I talked about density. Sorry, that's what I meant. I'll hand over to Adrian to go in more detail. I think I'm probably going outside of my lane here.
And I just want to clarify. My question was in response to the value for money. For anyone listening, I'm trying to perhaps provide an explanation of how or what is the value for the money and how you use that phrase. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. I will, in a minute, pass to our PMCA to talk to the actual dollar values, but the value is in us being able to actually meet our operational requirements. The security requirements at Zone 3 and Zone 4 level is really important. We're in an increasing threat environment with defence, and maximising the efficient use of our space, we also see value. There's also additional value in contemporary office fit-outs that support our workforce in flexible work arrangements, and then being able to access that and using space as an activity. From a dollar figure perspective, I'll just pass over to the PMCA who can talk in more detail to that in relation to value.
And look, if some of the responses need to go into the in-camera hearing, we're happy with that.
Certainly, we can talk specific numbers, I think, in the in-camera component. But what I'd probably add is further to what we touched on in the briefing earlier around the options that Defence have looked at. Option 3 and 4, looking at retaining those existing leases, or possibly moving to 4 other alternative locations. The evidence supports that costs for the capex costs for individual fit outs of currently occupied spaces is quite more expensive than fitting out a vacant cold shell space. So on the capex side, there is value for money in moving to a new location, and on the sort of forecast OPEX side of things as well. Again, we can talk specific numbers in camera, but on a forecast operational perspective, there is actually efficiency on a per work point basis. So because there is, as we've noted, additional work points, the cost per work point actually does come down for Defence as well. So,
okay, thank you. David, I'll hand over to you, and then Ash.
Thanks, Tony. Look, in the same vein, my understanding was that the option to remain where you were wasn't actually costed.
It's not fully costed. No, it would be difficult to fully cost that because there's a number of variables that would need, there'd need to be a fair bit of work to actually fully cost that. So, but there are variables obviously with construction costs, with escalation over the 2 to 8 year period that those leases, wrap up if we were to move elsewhere or refit at the end of those leases. The future leasing costs are also a big unknown. It's hard to ascertain what the lessor may seek in terms of
saying lessor, so
it is
probably at least in an advantageous position that you're dealing with the same landlord.
Quite possibly, yeah. I think without precluding what Canberra Airport may or may not have said in those discussions, it may have been difficult for them to forecast what rate they may propose 8 years from now, noting changes in commercial market rates over that period of time.
I think it's, for me, it's just a little bit concerning that option hasn't been costed. It actually makes it harder for us to make an assessment on that value for money. I can understand the value for money and the efficiencies driven by bringing those leases together. How many other offices does Defence lease? Not in the broader Brindabella Park precinct, but actually in the Brindabella Business Park itself. So not Majura, not Fairbairn. There are other buildings with quite substantial employee bases in Brindabella Park.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. I might take that one if I may. In excluding the buildings that are proposed to be handed back as part of the lease for 9 Molonglo, there are another 6 buildings that Defence lease within the Brindabella Park precinct. Those buildings are, if you want me to go into detail of them, which individual buildings they are.
I'll mention them. I know which ones are the
BP 12, BP 1, BP 33 to 35, BP 10, BP 29 to 31, and BP 20. And there's between those buildings a total of 3,588 workplaces.
Oh, gotcha. So that's where many more of the staff. Was there any thought about what opportunities there might be in those existing buildings in terms of, is there any underutilised space? Are there issues around expiring leases in those offices as well?
So when we undertake our assessments on across the ACT from an entire sort of lease portfolio perspective, we obviously consider the leases in those other buildings and the size of the buildings, how many staff are located in them, and what the disruption would be. The 4 buildings that were identified for handback were buildings that we were already looking to refurbish because of the ageing fit outs and those associated compliance risks that were emerging. The other buildings, there is not significant available capacity within other buildings to house staff. The ability to have a building that enables flexible and more agile ways of working obviously needs to include some infrastructure such as personal lockers. We've got increasing security requirements, which also makes fitting out some of those buildings or retrofitting
work groups as well. So
yeah.
I think it'd still be useful for the committee's benefit to have an understanding of how many staff, again, how many work points might be available, which will probably go to more why you've gone down the pathway you have. I just think it would be useful for the benefit of the committee to have a better picture of the whole defence utility of that precinct area. Yeah.
So would you like us to take that question on notice?
Yes, that'd be great.
Okay, no problems.
Thanks. That's all my questions. Ash?
Thanks, Chair. Just have a question on the consultation. Didn't seem like there was a lot of engagement, but I know that there was, withdraw that. I mean, like in a sense of people actually participating to provide feedback. And I note that obviously the union has been engaged. Is there any anticipation that there might be some additional changes or anything? Because I note that there's more consultation that needs to occur with other stakeholders.
I might take that question if I may. Yeah. So the consultation, under the Defence Enterprise Collective Agreement, there's a requirement for a pretty robust staff consultation process. Any moving of staff between locations constitutes a major change, and there's a set process for Defence to consult. So this is, for the most part, consultation with the CPSU, consultation with our National Workplace Relations Committee, and obviously the consultation process with staff. Since the Defence Strategic Review was released, we've undertaken around about 2,000 staff moves to better consolidate and co-locate our workforce. That's in response to a lot of the enterprise-wide structural changes that have occurred to sort of set Defence up for its operational capabilities it needs into the future. Throughout those processes, we've engaged with the CPSU and with our Workforce Committee. We've also been evolving and developing a really robust staff consultation process, and that includes a change management process. We've got change delegates who are dedicated, change champions within impacted groups and services. We host town hall sessions. We allow staff to ask questions. We capture those. We've been building out a frequently asked questions list, and we also do follow-up activity by way of surveys to sort of gauge staff's feeling about moving into those new environments where it is a change for them, and they are now working in a more agile and flexible environment.
Yeah.
And to date, the feedback from staff has been quite positive. The most recent survey results showed a 73% positive feedback from staff.
Great. No, I don't have any other questions, Chair.
Okay, can I just go to the issue of consultants and the quantity surveyor? The submission notes that the agreement for the lease includes a design services consultant, a head contractor and a quantity surveyor. My questions are these. How were these services identified and engaged? Is it a requirement of the lease agreement that specific parties be used for these services? And what was Canberra Airport's role in the engagement of these services?
I might pass the question on to Mr. McClelland from our PMCA at RPS.
So the agreement for lease is I guess, quite a more complex contract mechanism than what would typically be undertaken by, for example, CFI going to market for a managing contractor or a head contractor.
Yep.
So the agreement for lease encompasses a number of things. It encompasses, obviously, the agreement for lease itself, and includes within that the actual fit-out works to be undertaken by the lessor themselves. So the lessor is engaged to undertake the fit-out works on behalf of Defence.
So the lessor is engaged to undertake the fit-out. Does that mean the lessor then in turn appoints the design services consultant?
They have, yes. Yep.
Yes. And the head contractor?
Yes,
and the
correct.
quantity surveyor?
Yep.
So who pays for that though?
So all costs are borne by Defence, yes.
So the lessor chooses who does it, but Defence pays for it?
Yes, but the real cost is in the actual trade engagements, the trade packages for construction itself, which is, as noted before in our private briefing, on a fully open book basis, similar to a managing contractor model. So each of those trade engagements will go through, full market approach, rigorous assessment in accordance with Commonwealth procurement rules, for which the PMCA will oversee and provide oversight on as well.
Yeah, but I assume that the design services consultant and the quantity surveyor will still be putting their fees into the mix.
Correct, yes.
And so, effectively, the lessor decides who gets that part of the work, and then, of course, the individual trades that come in tender for the work, I assume.
Effectively, yes. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. There's also a lease incentive in all this. Can you... I think the committee over the years has sort of struggled to understand lease incentives, and certainly I have, and I think other members have too. But for anyone listening to this broadcast, can you just give us an overview of what that means, how a lease incentive works?
I might pass to Adrian on that one, if I could.
To get the Chair, I'll take that on notice if that's okay, and just if I can get the team to provide me with some information, I can respond. More fulsome response to it.
Yep. No, I'm happy with that as long as we get some information. So what is the role of the project manager and the contract administrator, or the project manager contract administrator in this project, and how will they go about subcontracting the independent commissioning agent?
Yep, so we have already sub-consulted and engaged that independent commissioning agent. They already are on board and effectively in waiting. They've provided some early advice through design reviews, to ensure that throughout the design documentation, those commissioning activities, which occur at the end of delivery, of course, are adequately defined and specified. But broadly, our role as the PMCA is at a very high level, project management, project governance. We act as effectively as agent on behalf of Defence in dealings with the lessor, with the lessor's builder and design team, and then as well as coordinating with any sub-consultants that we have brought along as well.
So, Brigadier, you might add to that answer, but are you engaged by Defence or
yeah, Chair, that's exactly what I'd like to add. That the project manager, contract administrator, RPS Consulting on this project was engaged by Defence, off Defence's infrastructure panel, in the normal procurement for all our projects. So they are the agent of the Commonwealth. They work for us and for our interests in this entire project. Oversee that, and I want to reinforce, obviously, the real cost of the fit out, the trade packages. They'll be done through an open book basis. Our project manager will see all the costs of that and see all the tenders, and not just and have a part in making sure that we get the best outcome for the Commonwealth in those trade package procurements, which is obviously the head contractor will manage that process, but we'll have full visibility.
When you referred to just a moment ago the panel that you go to, is there a different panel for each capital city, or maybe I'll reverse the question. Is there a select panel just for Canberra, or is it a national panel?
No, Chair, it's national panel. It's for all our projects. And that was went through a rigorous tendering process, and the panel has a life. I can't remember exact dates of when the panel was established, but we have 8 panel members, and they have various offices around the country, and so we'll select ones that can demonstrate that they've got the asset, the people in the right location to deliver the project, and in this case Canberra, but and each company gets an opportunity that we go to demonstrate how they can service our project in the locations that it is.
How often are the panels reviewed in terms of, you say there's a panel, I'm sure it's in place for maybe 5 years or something, I don't know the period, but is each panel appointed for a period of time?
Yes, Chair, that's correct. There's usually, we do have a couple of panels. So the Defence Infrastructure Panel has multiple things for the project manager, contractor administrator one. The panels for a set time frame with potentially some extension options. I can get back to you if you need the specific details of when it was established and how long that panel goes for. But yeah, it's usually around 5 years with some extension options is pretty standard for our setup of panels, which once again is tendered through an open market tender to establish the panel.
And is the guidelines as to how you appoint that panel and the number of entities that are listed on it prescribed by the government, or is it something Defence does? In other words, you said there was 8 on that panel. Is the number 8 determined by Department of Defence, or is it a Commonwealth procurement number?
That's determined by the Department of Defence for our purposes. It goes through a fairly rigorous approval process with the delegation, with delegates within the department who can approve that.
Yeah, I'm just wondering how maybe a new entity out there in the market, commercial group, comes along and sets themselves up, how they can then bid for work or get onto the panel, what the process is for them. I suppose they have to wait for this 5-year cycle or whatever the term is, and then apply.
Chair, that's correct. They'll have to wait until we go to an open market tender again to refresh the panel.
Yep. Okay.
We have the Deputy Chair on the WebEx now.
We have Mr. Wilcox with us now. Andrew, can you hear us? I can see your lips move, but I can't hear you.
Okay.
Andrew, we still can't connect with you. I'm not sure what the problem is, but if you have
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
All right, perfect. So
I haven't got the best net, so if you can do without looking at me, which is probably doing you a favour, Chair.
Thanks, Andrew. Andrew, we're just going through the public hearing phase of the hearing, and we're coming towards the end of that from our end. Did you have any questions that you wanted to ask the witnesses that are here right now?
Not at this stage. Thank you. I hope that we've covered off that we're getting good value for money out of this. That would be my question. I did have a look at the square metre rate and what we're doing.
We've covered that to some extent. My understanding is that the project, and I'm happy to be corrected by the witnesses, my understanding is that the project is expected to come in under the budgeted amount of 103 million, which was what is listed. Brigadier, is that correct, just for the record?
Yeah, yes, that is correct.
Yeah. So at this stage, it looks like we should be on track to at least have the project completed within the budget that's been committed to it. But if you have any other concerns...
Thank you, Chair.
And thanks for coming on. We know that you've had some difficulty with your air flights, but at least you're on board now, so that's good. Well, look, we'll probably wrap this part of the hearing up in a moment, and then we'll have a 5-minute break, and then we'll go into the in-camera hearing. To my colleagues, David, did you have any other questions?
Yeah, Chair, just one that's sort of been nagging away at me, which is what percentage of staff are working from home or have some sort of work from home?
Thanks, Mr. Smith. I'll take that one. In relation to the actual percentages of staff working from home, that data's not readily available to us here, but what we can tell you, and the data that we do use when we're looking at our fit-outs and leases, is we use our swipe data. So we've got swipe access to buildings, tells you on any given day how many people are accessing a building. And on average, our data shows us that our buildings in the ACT are typically on average at around 60% occupancy. There are, however, in higher security zoned areas, people are working at higher ratios. Typically in Russell, where we've got our headquarters building and all of our chiefs, it's a lot higher a ratio to some of our other buildings. And our data is also telling us that some of our buildings where we do have ageing fit outs and that are really old are the ones that have got a lesser people are sort of accessing the working from home a lot more. So by creating a more contemporary environment, we're actually sort of encouraging people to be in the workplace a bit more as well.
So look, if you're able to get a closer percentage of maybe how many staff might have such an arrangement. I guess what I'm interested in is how do you replicate a Zone 3 or Zone 4 environment if you're working from home? And if the answer is you can't, which might be the answer, it's interesting for me about how staff who require that in the office environment, why they may not require it if they're working from home.
We can take that on notice.
Yeah, I'm
if that's
happy
okay.
for you to take that on notice.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for that, David, because that reminded me I wanted to ask that question, and particularly the one about the zoning, and I'll ask it in camera again because I guess I just want some answers to some of that. My other question on the same topic, I understand that the layout account provides, I think, some 8 desks for every 10 employees, according to the information we've got. If a staff member wants to work 5 days a week from there, are they entitled to say, look, can I have this as my permanent desk?
Thank you, Chair. So the way Defence is approaching its allocation of work points at the moment, yes, we are allocating on an 8 to 10 basis, but we are allocating larger cohorts, so whether it be a division or a branch, as opposed to sort of individual sections. We're allocating them as a neighbourhood of workstations at that ratio, and we're giving the autonomy to that group or service to actually manage their own footprint. There will certainly be instances where people have specific work health and safety requirements. And, you know, in those instances that the group managing those may well obviously allocate someone a desk. Similarly to if there's going to be people in there 5 days a week, you know, they may have a specific desk. It's up to the group in service.
Okay.
Actually, just on that, Chair, I think in the numbers, there's with the co-location, you're looking at possibly another 200 work points, rather than almost I would have expected there to be the same number of work points. So there's effectively a projection of growth. Is that correct?
So we are there will be an additional 192 work points over and above what Defence currently has. That's based on a denser floor plate. So the existing leases have a fit out density of I can get the exact numbers. I believe it was around anywhere from 14 to 17 square metres per work point, whereas this fit out will provision the 12.8 square metres per work point, allowing us to provision a greater number of work points within a similar.
So you might actually have just close to 200 work points which are vacant, depending on what happens with growth or movement of staff.
Mr. Smith, we will fill the building at 9 Molonglo Drive. We don't look at our leased footprint in the ACT in isolation of the other leases that we've got. We've got sort of 43, 46 leases in the ACT. And they're coming up to end of lease dates at various times. We will be looking to consolidate our footprint further. So this is a really good step towards consolidating our lease footprint. We're going to continue to do that over the coming decade and reduce our footprint and try and move our entire workforce to that more agile ways of working over the fullness of time.
Yep, thanks.
Ash, did you have any final questions?
No.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, well, I thank you all for your participation in today's hearing. If the committee has any further questions, they'll be put to you in writing. You'll also be sent a copy of the transcript of your evidence to the committee today, and if you feel you need to make any corrections, please advise the Secretariat of that. With that, I declare this public hearing closed.